Hey, welcome to another episode of The Wireless Way. I'm your host, Chris Whitaker, and as always, grateful that you are here. And, my guest and I were just talking about Father's Day this past weekend, and it even reminds me how I'm so grateful about a lot of things. And totally would plan on going this way, but I might as well say this in my mind, man. An attitude of gratitude will get you through just about every situation. So I hope you're having a great day and hope you're grateful for it. And again, I'm grateful that you're here listening to yet another episode. You keep coming back. So I appreciate it. 5 years strong, 70 plus countries. It's been a great journey for me. And I'm grateful for Alex Fender. He's my guest today, and I want to tell you a little bit about him. As always, he's the chief funnel scientist and founder of Funnel Science, and we're going to hear more about that. In addition, as important, he would probably say, is he's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran turned tech entrepreneur, specializing in sales funnel optimization and predictive analytics. In my world, we talk a lot about predictive analytics and AI. We're going to dig into that. As a founder of Funnel Science, he has spent over 15 years helping more than 1,000 businesses, from startups to Fortune 500 companies, maximize revenue through data-driven marketing strategies. His expertise spans B2B and B2C channels, as business to business and business to consumer channels, high ticket sales, and luxury markets. Again, this is going to be an interesting one, folks. So buckle in. He's a graduate of Columbia College with a BS in management. Alex furthers his studies in predictive analytics at Northwestern University. His accolades include being named a Veteran Entrepreneur of the Year by MTI, the Federal Reserve Bank in Dallas, and winning the Veteran Business Battle at Rice University. Alex has also served on the committee in Washington, D.C., appointed by the Secretary of the SBA, focusing on veteran business and development. So if you know me and you've been listening a while, we hit a lot of things that you'll see why I asked Alex. As a veteran myself, love that story. As a technology enthusiast, love his day job. So this is gonna be a great episode. Alex, thanks for making time and thanks for being flexible enough to get this thing scheduled. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Happy to be here and thanks for inviting me. We got a lot to talk about.
We do. And, before I even get into my first question, man, it's kind of part of my first question, but U.S. Marine Corps veteran, I'm an Army infantry veteran. Here we are talking about algorithms and AI. And I don't think we learned this stuff in basic training, did we?
And no, maybe how to avoid getting detected or how to avoid, staying out of the limelight of getting, your aft shoot or anything along those lines.
That's right.
I think I learned in the military early on how to be a professional skater and just skate my ass out of any, bullshit scenarios I didn't want to
Don't,
be a
yeah, don't
part of as
volunteer.
much as I
Never
could.
volunteer. Yeah, don't volunteer. Yeah, I was a slower learner on that one, it seems. But what did you do in the Marine Corps, by the way? Remind me, what was your MOS?
So, I served for 8 years and I joined in 99, shipped to boot camp, in 2000. And then I got out in April of '08. And so, my MOS was, logistics for the first 6 years and it was in 0411. And, it's kind of interesting. This is, for the first 6 years, I never did my job, not one day. And when I was, early on before September 11th happened, I was doing the honor guard and color guard at the base and doing the funeral details. And then September 11th happened and then things kind of changed. So now we're activated. I started as a reservist going to college. I wanted to be a pilot. And so what ended up happening was my first car was a '69 Mustang and I had it on base. And then the September 11th happens and we're supposed to be deploying to Afghanistan, and I ended up selling this car, parting it out on eBay, selling car parts, and I made quite a bit of profit during this 9-month period of a workup to go to Afghanistan. And then, so the Marines found out that I was good with computers, and so what was interesting was they came into my barracks room and did a barracks inspection. They thought I was selling freaking drugs at the barracks room, and There was no drugs. There was no drugs, but they couldn't understand how a freaking private had made so much money. And the NCOs, they brought me up into the S3 office and they sat me down and they made me prove to them how I was making all this money. And so they made me prove like my eBay account, my order history, my shipping history, my bank account. And I showed them all of this. And I showed them how I was buying and selling car parts. I was buying car parts from Summit for $120 a box, and I was selling them on eBay for $500 a box all around the fucking world. And they just couldn't believe this 19-year-old kid was able to do this out of a barracks room. And I mean, every freaking day I'd have like 10 to 20 boxes at the base post office. And so one day the manufacturer called me up and they're like, why are we shipping all these parts to this military base in Fort Worth, Texas? They thought there was like some hook or something coming in, they didn't know. And I was selling them as fast as they could produce them. And then they had them on back order. So anyways, when they found out I was good with computers, they sucked me out of my job and put me in the S3, and I was the computer bitch for the next 6 years, or 5 years at this point. And it was pretty interesting because I ended up working on a database for the squadron, and we developed it real significant for the S3 shop and doing training and ops. And so that's how I really got into technology on that. But before that, I'd done my first database like in the 10th grade. So I'd already had some experience in junior high and high school doing computers, but in the Marines, I was 19 years old selling car parts. And then I became the S3 guy that ran the damn database. And that's how I got to kind of cut my path into the technology from the military aspect.
That's fascinating. And you're right. They don't expect that E1, E2 to be having a lot of folding money, a lot of cash on hand. Usually they're spending that all downrange at the bars or something. Now that's pretty cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. And kind of pivoting a little bit, how did you go from being that Marine doing what you were doing to being the chief funnel scientist at Funnel Science? What was that journey look like? What did that journey? Yeah, yeah. I'll edit that out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens, by the way. I edit things out. Okay, so yeah. So tell me more about that journey of going from the Marine Corps to being the chief funnel scientist at Funnel Science.
Yeah, man, it was interesting because at the second company that I was a part of, I was a partner in this company, 51%. I had a business partner and then an investor. And I'd left for deployment and came back. It was in the summer of 2008. And he was writing a check for $10,000 to a marketing company to buy leads. And I asked them, of these leads that you're buying, how many are we closing and how many sales are we making? And he told me 50% of the leads we were closing turning to sales. I was like, man, that's amazing. Buy more of those leads. But the case was, we weren't even close to that. I could tell. And I wrote some reports out of the database, just some real simple marketing reports. And I brought him the report as he's writing another check a couple of weeks later. So he had spent $80,000 on marketing to a vendor to buy leads. And it turns out our freaking close ratio was a goose egg, a 0%. And I said to him, maybe if we apply some science to our sales funnel, that we might just get a better outcome. And the idea of using a process to measure your lead quality, or just start with like count of leads. How many leads are you getting? How many are qualified? How many are closing? How many sales you're making? Like apply some quality control measures to this, and the goal is as a return on investment. If you spend 80 grand on marketing, well, that's fine if it produces, 3 or 4 or 500,000 in sales. But if it produces nothing in sales, or 100,000 in sales, or even 200,000 in sales, I mean, that sucks, or that's not that good.
Right.
And
Right.
and then that summer I coined the term funnel science. And I said, we need to put some funnel science together and build a better funnel based on some testing and test and measure what works and what doesn't. And then by doing that, we had really impressive results. And so I decided, that funnel science seemed to be pretty good. I tried it out with some other businesses, and then we set it up and we launched the company in 2011.
How was that first year? You always hear about that first year being tough. I mean, it sounds like you had a good use case, you had some good data. How long before you really felt like it was up and running? Or
We The first year was interesting. I was in the middle of a lawsuit with my former business partners. I had started the company and then got married in June, and so it was a very stressful first year. I also quit as a consultant at another company, so I didn't have really any income coming in. It was operated out of my two-bedroom apartment. I had the spare one bedroom, so I put my desk and computer connection there. And you know what I did? I just hustled and I made a lot of sales happen. Or I mean, that's how you do it. You just pick up the phone and smile and dial. Or I mean, you make it happen, you know. But we had a pretty good process that worked pretty well. And so we were able to build up just based on executing the process. This was pre the software coming about. So Funnel Science built some software starting in 2013. But if you execute a process of test and measure and verify and reconcile, if you just do that, and then if you go to work and do a good job, I mean, in theory, you should be able to make sales happen. But a lot of these companies, they struggle with marketing and sales because they just throw poo-poo, against the wall and hope something sticks. And that doesn't really work that well. Or that's just a real, the spray and pray method where you spray it out there as far and wide as possible, and then you pray
right,
that something comes in. I mean, that shit, that's a lot,
it don't work.
very wasteful, you
But
know?
yeah, and yeah, and then they're not wanting to invest in a proper CRM. They're trying to use some outdated, you know, antiquated CRM or a database that's not really built to be a CRM. And I've seen it done all kind of ways. I've seen it done right, wrong, and I've seen it, done perfectly and not so perfectly. But yeah, I love when we were talking. I guess a little more backstory. You and I met at the Connect Us Rev Up Your Revenue event at Dallas Motor Speedway a few weeks ago. Fun
Yep.
time. We had a great time, man. That was next level event right there. I tell you. I think you're the first guy I actually bumped into at the reception the night prior, so that was really cool. But when I heard what you were doing at Funnel Science, I'm like, huh. I know of at least a dozen companies that could really benefit from this, because everyone's here's my the favorite. They have the funnel, they have the CRM, and they have 5 different reports for the same data set. And
Oh
you
yeah.
just kind of you pick the report that looks the best. Back to like your CEO talking, thinks he had this great close rate. There was probably some metric somewhere that showed that, but the reality was that's not the case, right? So I've lived a lot of the things you described and thought to myself, man, with all this technology we have now and all this software and smart people, why aren't we taking advantage of it? Why aren't companies, leaning into this? Because yeah, data is king. That's the saying, God we trust, but all others must have data. And you need to make
Yeah.
sure it's right. And you can prove your data. So my goodness. So what other problems are you solving? I mean, do you see a trend in the companies you're working with? Is it similar, everybody kind of the same problems, or is it different across the board? Where are the key problems you're solving with your solution?
This is one that's baffling to me that, I mean, you would think that people know what ROI stands for. Return on investment is what I'm talking about. This is a very
Mhm.
common measurement for success, or use, or should be used. And what I found is it's rarely used, it's rarely defined correctly, and then almost never reconciled or never verified to actually make sure that it's accurate, or there's some measure of accuracy there, it's degree, a margin of error that but I've interviewed and talked to thousands of people on show me the ROI report, and most don't have it. And it's like not knowing how much gas is in the tank, or I mean, there's some return on ad spend is another one if you're doing advertising, especially like with Google or Meta or any sort of digital ads. I mean, this is just such a crucial metric to measure success. And then, so your return on investment. And then if it's done on a spreadsheet, like spreadsheets are like 80% wrong or error ridden. And so spreadsheets, you know, they're the wrong tool to be used and they're still being used. And it's so freaking crazy that companies invest like crazy amounts of money and then export it to a freaking spreadsheet and then try to present from that. It's just stupid almost. And so, um,
Why
the,
do you think that
so
is? Why do you think it's 80% error rate? That's high, man. And I don't disagree with you. It just takes one guy to copy and paste the wrong formula, and
what
it's
it is,
toast.
copy and paste, and it's the multiplicity effect. And it's like they just keep using the same logic, but there's never, this is what it is. This is the key thing. I keep coming in over and over, and nobody ever reconciles or counts or rechecks the work. You know,
Hmm.
I don't understand why there's like what we did in the military was inspections. And so I just plan inspections or go in and inspect things and then, and don't expect what you don't inspect. That's something I absolutely learned, and then if people are telling you, that, typically your sales team's telling you they're bad leads. Okay, well, let's go verify the marketing data, but don't tell me they're bad leads if there's no freaking notes in the CRM or if you're not executing any sales entry or to tell me like quantify why it's a bad lead. So there's a lots of problems in there between the oftentimes it's digital based, should be collected in a CRM. The report should be automated and built and integrated together. And these companies, they never integrate the data correctly. That's the other thing. Is so they're trying to match or draw conclusions on reports, but they never capture the data correctly to begin with. So the reports are never going to be accurate. They're just never, it's like you're trying to track how much sales success you have from a campaign ID and you don't track the UTM values or they don't integrate it correctly or the webmaster doesn't do their part and then the database admin doesn't do their part to sync it in the Salesforce field correctly so it doesn't show up in the Salesforce, or you have to tie in like 3 other freaking tools to make it work. I mean, that's what the norm is.
How often do you come across a company doing it right?
Like it's so rare. It's so freaking rare. Um, like not that often, like once a
One a
year,
year,
maybe
maybe? Okay, one
one
a
a
so
or
that
2 a
one a
year.
year, why are
And
they
then
doing it right? Does someone they have like a data analyst on staff that could, I mean, right? I feel like someone has to own that whole ecosystem of information. Because if it's not, and it's all
yeah,
parsed out the different departments, no wonder, you can't get 3 people to agree on a plan half the time. You like if you get 2 people to agree on a plan. What are they doing? What was doing it right look like besides hiring your company?
this is a great question. In the military, we fight missions and we fight missions to win, and the missions have an objective. And part of the mission is not to kill off all your troops or your personnel, right? And so you go to war, you go to battle, or it doesn't even always have to be a fight. Sometimes we go fight missions to do like humanitarian work or build something, but you have a common objective and people work together towards that common objective that's very clear, and there's a leader that can drive that. And then that's what's oftentimes is missing is there's oftentimes somebody clearly driving that objective. Hey, we need to gather these people. We need to do this work. We need to accomplish this. And then this is how we're going to do it. And it's just the military is very good at that. And then on the civilian side, I see projects, especially like IT projects. IT projects have a really high failure rate because they're never on freaking time or they never accomplish the business objective or they're so far out of scope or budget that it's just like sometimes they pull the project because it just doesn't work. Ultimately, it doesn't solve, the technology doesn't work to solve the business objective. And so um, it's, and then here's the other thing. This shit changes so fast, man. It's like changing so fast. So we have tools that are set up and working on Google APIs and everything was fine last week. And then we come into work today and then they're not working now, And so there's this agile method, or you have to be able to ideate and build and then unbuild and rebuild. And then just this constant keeping up, or at some point there's this maintenance phase of it. So it's really hard. I mean, you have to have some people that really know how to drive this through technology.
And, another observation as you were talking, it made me think about, again, it's just kind of the corporate mindset of decision by committee. I've always struggled with that because, well, I guess one of the benefits of a decision by committee, when it goes wrong, there's no one person to own it, but in the
Oh yeah.
military, whoever the senior ranking person on site,
Yeah.
they're responsible. Even I don't. Bottom line, who's in charge here? We should
Mm.
hear that, right? Who's in charge here? Who's OIC or who's NCOIC? So if you're listening, you're this, and you are the senior person in your company. I go as far as say what we're talking about. It's up to you to fix it. Someone has to make a decision that we're not going to live with bad data. We're not. We can't report, especially our board of directors. You're publicly traded. Ouch. I mean, we've seen a lot of CEOs and C levels lose their job because of making decisions on bad data, right? So, what's the other Reagan had the saying, or trust but verified. You want to trust your analysts, but have them prove it to you, right? Just like you do with your customers. Um,
Reconcile, inspect, check and recheck, or verify. And then like, it's just like, it's not done once a year. It should be done more often than that. I mean, especially when you're spending, you know, millions of dollars on marketing to send to salespeople, and then they're held accountable to a quota, but then like the marketing people are held accountable to nothing. It's like sometimes they're held accountable to nothing, but then they don't, and they don't know, or it's amazing how many times they say it's not their job, or it's like, well, I'm the designer, or I'm the webmaster. I'm not responsible for leads, or I'm not responsible in the sales aspect of it. And that's where a lot of leadership fails happen,
yeah.
is not aligning the troops to a common goal and then supporting them with the correct technology components. Or here's the other thing, man. I just lit up one of the phone companies not long back. What they do is they stack shit upon shit upon shit of process, and they force their customers to go through it. And then the customers are just like, good grief, I'm not doing this. So this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. And they start the journey, try to sign up, and then very quickly they abandon it and say, this sucks, or this company sucks, and there's no way I'm working with them. So that's another common aspect, where they put all of these either processes or typically technologies in place, like the phone tree, like the call screening, enter your data in through a VA that's overseas. And then a salesperson might call you back in like 5 to 7 days from now, if you're lucky. And it's just kind of ridiculous with some of these companies put together, and then wonder why their sales funnel sucks so bad. It's because it's not designed for speed or customer satisfaction, or designed to facilitate a seamless, like fast and easy transaction. Normally they're doing a lot of pain in the ass things, and we have to remove that from the process. And then all of a sudden they get all these sales coming in just because you simplified the customer journey.
Ease of doing business. I mean, that everywhere every industry, every customer engagement, that's what we all want. Everyone wants it easy. You make it complex, painful, I'll find another way. I'll find someone else. Or maybe I just won't make that decision. I won't do that buying decision at all, possibly. Um, Gosh,
So in
man,
the
so
military,
you see a lot.
speed is a weapon. And if you can overwhelm your enemy with speed, then you can defeat them or accomplish the mission quicker. It's kind of the same thing in customer service. The faster the salesperson can keep the customer happy and make them happy, that's how you win, and that's how you can dominate over your competition. Because oftentimes their leaders or people aren't thinking of, how do I leverage speed to make the customer happier and then get paid faster or make profit faster? And so, or how do I use speed, or how do I reduce latency here to impact these other things, or measure customer sentiment through AI tools, and then measure how happy the customers are, and then to sales velocity, or that the speed is the weapon, and it's completely not used or understood with analytics or predictive analytics in most companies. They're not even tracking ROI correctly. So they're not getting to velocity or forecast or prediction, because they're still stuck at level 1 and level 2 of, how do I collect the data and what does my data mean? it's real interesting. Like you'd think we should be way further along in this. We're 2025, but like it's still very, very few companies are putting these things together. But the ones that are just like lightning fast compared to others, and others are still, really stuck back in like early 2000s thinking of this,
I have a theory on that, Alex, and it sounds a little bit ageist, I guess is the right word. I mean, I'm obviously we're 50, been around for a while, got some gray hair, but I took a lot of business leaders. If you're not in tech and you kind of came up in that 70s and 80s time frame and you're in charge, yeah, it's like, why would I need that? Business was
Yeah.
built off a clipboard and a calculator. We could, now we have Excel. Woo, that's our technology, but you said. So, you got to wonder if in the next decade or so, obviously there's a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. But especially I think that 30s group, right? I mean, they've not known a time when there wasn't internet. They haven't known a time when there wasn't,
Right.
some type of software or smart device. So it's interesting. Will there be a time where it's just going to flip, where a business leader in charge says, "I expect software to be driving this outcome and not you in a manual process with 10 different versions of a spreadsheet and 1.0, 2.0, I mean, all these different versions." What do you think? Does that make sense? Do you think that's possible?
Man, I'm reading business plans and I'm hearing investors speak about how they're looking at org charts for new companies that are getting pitched to them that might have like one or two or three founders in it. And then in the org chart, it's not personnel, it's agents, AI agents or devins. And so they're saying like director of marketing, this bot, director of sales of this bot, director of customer service, this bot. And so you have what's called devins or AI agents is what it is. And so um, I'm seeing a lot of dumbass AI customer service stuff, but I'm seeing a lot of it be really, really intelligent or work very effectively. So it takes some humans. There's called unsupervised learning or supervised learning. You have to supervise it and guide it and like reinforce it or keep training it to make it better. I mean, I think humans notoriously do really bad at work consistently. And so
Yeah.
there's there why not? I mean, but it's not you have to what we're seeing, we're using it daily. This is what we're seeing. If you have it, the tool put in the right hand, it has to be like with the correct business leader or architect and developer, and then you deploy these bots or these agents together. It can be very impressive with the outcomes. But what we're seeing is when people try to do it, lay business person, not knowing the technology or not knowing the coding or development aspects of it, they can hack it or duct tape it together and they think it works, but it kind of crashes and burns pretty quickly. And you're seeing a lot of companies do that. One of these companies was freaking completely fluffing it and having, Indian tech support as the bot. And they just went belly up with like a $60 million raise or something crazy, so there's, it it doesn't always work because they're they're not building it correctly, and it takes like the really really great engineers to bring it together. That's what I'm seeing. It takes like a couple great engineers, and that's where companies don't have it. They're not trained in it, and so they're like their webmaster becomes the freaking AI guy or something, or um, worked on a recent project. The project was API project. They failed at it for months and months and couldn't get it done. And we were able to get it done in like 4 to 6 weeks, where previously it had been stuck, for months. So these AI agents can't figure out everything, but I think you're going to see this in new company structures quite often, where personnel are replaced with what's deemed on the org chart is essentially a bot with that function.
Wow. Is anyone supervising that bot? Like anyone fact checking it? I mean, it seems like that's my
Better
thought.
be. They
Better
should be.
be.
I mean, they're probably not. Probably not.
Yeah.
We built
Copy and
it. We think
paste.
it's
Copy and
great.
paste.
Yeah.
It's a whole new meaning of copy and paste now. Taking the AI output, not fact checking it, just using it as your own original idea. That's dangerous. But again, I'm a content creator. I use AI all the time, but I use it as a
Mhm.
tool. It's not my end all be all. I've always fact checked it, make it my own, change words because I always use words that I would never use. That's always like a red flag. You tell when someone's copy and pasting, Chat GPT, and not you're not making it their own. Hey, Alex, one of the questions. So, who's mostly making decisions to go with your company? What level? I mean, who are you talking to at a company that would say, "Yeah, we want to do business with you"?
Um, for the most part, it's going to be mid-level management to senior level management or executive management. Um, we're dealing. Uh, we work with companies all across the country. We do a little bit of international. We've done international for some time, but we're primarily North America. And then we deal with a lot of the middle market or million to $100 million companies, often,
Mm.
all the time. And then it depends. We do three things. We do marketing, we have the software, and then there's the other technology aspect. So it just slightly depends on who's coming in or contacting us. Um, we had one interesting last a few weeks ago, calling in for our phone service that does phone tracking and recording and sentiment analysis. And the sentiment tracks how positive or happy the calls are. And it was a property management group, so mid-level managers, they saw the demo, so they were influencing or the owners of this property management group that had like 10 or 20 apartment complexes. It was their mid-level management reaching out to better quality control the marketing and sales training and lead capture capabilities. So other times it's executives or vice presidents at bigger companies that are, having real large marketing budgets, like 20, $50 million marketing budgets, and they're trying to expand sales teams and leads and things like that. So just there's a range that we work with. Not so much startups anymore. If they're well-funded startups, we do some of that, but definitely no nonprofits or no government or any crap like that.
Yeah. How do you mentioned ROI, and I do believe in that too. It's like if we're going to do it, let's make sure there's a benefit, there's an outcome that's beneficial to the company, and that's ultimately why we're all here. How do you show an ROI to your customers? Are they is there a dashboard or is there some metrics you show them that hey, since we started to where we are now, you're earning this much more? Is is that a thing for you? Does your customers
It's
expect you to
built
help them show
into
that?
our dashboard. As soon as you sign in, it's the first thing you see. How
I
much did I
figured.
spend? How much did I make? How many leads are on deck? What's the lead quality? It is right there in your face. And it is like there's core set of metrics that you need to know, but you need to know how much am I spending? How many sales are coming in? How much revenue should be coming in from new sales? Total revenue or recurring revenue, however we're tracking this for the funnel, right? So those are five in like the first five columns of the dashboard. One, two, three, four, five, right there. And then if it's set up right, there's another column that's all the way at the end. That's the prediction column. And if you hit that, and it gives you a projected or forecasted ROI. So this month's sales projected into the future based on how many are qualified, your closing rate, the days to close, are basically a sales forecast or a sales projection. So you're bringing in leads today, but they're not closing today. They should be closing in the future. So if you run predictive analytics, that would be the final aspect of it. So we have that built in. And then we have a funnel report that shows the customer journey, and it shows like how many customers are coming through and what the ROI is, even down to the freaking keyword. So to the word, how much did you spend on the word? And then how much is that word making you in leads and sales? So, I mean, it can be drilled down to that specific or to the page or to the campaign or to the ad ID. You can get really precise with what your ROI is on your digital assets.
Have you ever come across a prospect that just wasn't ready for you? I mean, they didn't. Everything was done on clipboards and paper. Maybe. If their ecosystem's not
Mm.
digitized, it's probably hard for you to work with them. And is that like a? I mean, have you ever met a customer like, yeah, I don't know if we can help you because you're just not ready. You're so messed up.
It's all the time. And I had one and it was crazy to me. It was a marine owned company. We connected And it was crazy because we had really great successes in his industry and we knew exactly what to do. And I could tell in the process and the contracting or the agreement process was like, I don't think this guy's going to do it right. And just based on how he was kind of talking. So I actually wrote into the contract like three different bullets and said, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this. Right. And this is what it was. It was very simple requirements for success here. You must give us your webmasters access and support, and we must be able to make updates to your website. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was very simple. That was number one. Number two, you have to track your leads and you have to verify or give me a report or measurement of the leads. Like you have to track your leads and put it into a report. And then I can't remember what the third thing was, man. It had something to do with access to their analytics or access to the reporting system so that it could properly be set up. And
Wow.
I did a pilot with them for 90 days. And then, this was the other thing. Oh, I remember what it was, man. I told him not to do this too. I said, he gave me the freaking rookie new hire that had no training, never been in the industry. And then he stuck him over on our project thinking he was going to be successful. And this guy quit within like the first 90 days or something. And so I said, give me your best guy to work with. Don't give me the FNG that doesn't know anything yet, that's trying to do the, on the job training, learn as you go. And so sometimes, man, they just don't put it together right on like, I told you exactly what you need to know, like Marine to Marine, and he still wasn't willing to listen.
So people are just aren't, yeah, they don't want your help, or people want an easy button. And, anything worth doing, it's going to take effort. I mean, like, you can get a personal trainer, which I keep saying I want to do that, but I haven't. I should. But if I had one, I know I would. What I'm paying for it, I want an ROI. I would just see a return on it. Just having a personal trainer is not going to make me in better shape. I still got to show up. I got to eat right. I got to put the time in. That's interesting. I'm an advisor to advisors, and I've talked to a lot of folks, and I can talk to them blue in the face. But if someone's not willing to change their behavior or at least contribute, show up, and put effort into it, there's no point in us talking, honestly, right? I mean, so it's probably the same for you. There's no point calling you unless you're willing to acknowledge you're not doing it right and you're willing to make some changes and follow a plan. So
One of
it
our
makes a lot of
most
sense.
powerful tools that we use that we built back in like 2013 or 2014 that we still use like every day today is call tracking and recording. And then we've added a few tools on top of it, the transcriptions and the sentiment analysis, so you can analyze the conversation or build reports quicker. But it's the call recordings and listening to how your employees talk to customers or how your customers talk to your company.
Yeah.
And what you hear in these phone calls can be just absolutely revolutionary and change. But what's crazy is sometimes you present call recordings to people and you show them where they're doing a bad job. And sometimes they just get it and they go, I shouldn't have said it like that. But then other
Yeah.
times you show them calls that were like really handled poorly. And you're like, you can't talk to customers like that, or you can't do it like this. And then like blind dropping calls or parking calls on hold for too long or just bouncing calls. Like that's a common one, but it gets pretty crazy in what we hear in the call recordings. And so, man, that tool is so freaking powerful and probably one of the most underutilized management tools that I see. But the companies that use that or do quality control on what the customer interactions and measure the customer interactions, man, they get a way better outcome. But the call recordings, man, that's probably one of the best, most powerful tools to use for marketing, sales, customer service, accountability, like branding, like reputation, and then even website content or what your customers are calling about. And then sometimes even competitive reviews because they're calling in, telling you stuff that you guys didn't know about. And the next thing you know, while all the competitors doing it, you should have been knowing about it in the first place. So there's a lot that goes on in those call recordings, man. It's one of the most freaking powerful things that a business can use and should be using as a normal part of the management cycle.
And that's a feature of your service then, it sounds like, right? I mean, that's what you
Well,
provide?
yeah, it's something
Okay.
that's built in. It's
It's
definitely
built in.
used on the marketing side for marketing quality control. It's also used on the sales side, like how are our leads doing, or how many leads are closing, or what's happening on the sales side. So we use it as quality control to measure marketing effectiveness and then the sales follow up and how sales does.
That's a very interesting. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I know we were just going to kind of scrape the surface of it. Definitely, if you're listening and you're interested, check the show notes. I'll have links of how to get in touch with Alex and his team at Funnel Science. Alex, our last question. Is there anything you wanted to cover we didn't hit on? Any last words you want to leave us with?
Mm. No, always be testing. That's one thing to be focused in on. Set up a tool, measure, have the correct measurement or quality control piece, and then always be testing and then test and verify and just keep measuring. And you should
Always be
accomplish your goal.
testing. Yeah, well, of course, we all know always be closing, but I like to always be testing. That definitely has me thinking. Um, Very interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, thanks for your service. Thanks for your service to commercial industry and the business world. I think that's it's fascinating that so many smart people do start great businesses and they make a lot of money, but it gets to a point where it's kind of like that Peter principle. They raise to their level of incompetence in a sense, and they need help. And a lot of
Yeah.
them, the ego prevents them from asking for help. Ask for help. There's nothing wrong with getting help. Call it assistance if you will. You get some assistance, guidance, some backup, support, whatever it is. Alex, thanks a lot for making time. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
your story with us today. I appreciate it.
Have a good one. Great meeting with you.
Likewise, likewise. And there you go, folks. Another episode of The Wireless Way. And as always, if you heard something that resonated, something that you think a colleague or a client or a prospect of yours might be interested in, please share this episode with them. You can always go to thewirelessway.net. It's a website for the show, and you can hit the contact us button and provide feedback or suggestions or just check in. Just check in with me. I love to hear from you. A lot of great episodes coming. Man, it's been a busy summer already for the Wireless Way. A lot of great episodes coming your way. So thanks again for checking it out, and we'll see you next time on the Wireless Way.